All right, what's up, everybody? This is Don Ward, Third Creative, thirdcreative.com, and this is a walkthrough tutorial video for Game On. Game On is the new multi-sport template. It is a bundle that includes 9 files that you see here. Starting in the top left over here, you'll get 3 vertical files, a 1x2, a 2x3, and a 4x5. And you'll also get 5 horizontal files. You'll also get the 1x2, 2x3, and 4x5, but you get an additional 4x5 that's dedicated for a memory mate, which we'll go over later in the video. You also get a 1x3 panoramic, and this last one down here is actually a 1x1 file. And this is the file that you would use for buttons. It has built-in bleed guides that you can turn on and off to see where the safe zones are. So it's great for buttons, but it is 14 inches by 14 inches, 300 ppi, and it can be used for 1x1 prints, 1x1 ratio, that is. Of course, 1x1 is the ratio that Instagram likes, so it's great for social media. Not just a button file, but great for buttons. But let's take a closer look at the design and some of the options, and then we'll jump into all the layers and how to customize them, and hopefully ultimately create a product that's going to be profitable for you and that people are going to love and bring you more business. So with this design, you'll see this is a version, everything that comes with the template was created with, specifically referring to the section behind the subject image here. It's kind of a torn paper effect, and it reveals this repeating text. So it has repeating text layers built in, and you can use that. It can say whatever you want. But a nice touch always, maybe not always, but often, is to incorporate an image of their own playing field or court. And that is something that you can do. And I created this graphic here to kind of illustrate that. I took a photo standing in the middle of their field on the 50-yard line, took a photo of the stands, put it in Lightroom, made a few tweaks to it. When I brought it to Photoshop, you can see this image here. I enhanced it using sky replacement. And I'm not going to make this a full sky replacement tutorial video. However, later in this video, I will demonstrate how I did that and how I dropped it in here. But it is very easy, and it is included in Photoshop CC. So it's an extra touch that you can add if the sky in your image that you want to use, is kind of boring and plain. Now you'll see over here when I dropped it into the template, I went ahead and desaturated it. I added a levels adjustment so I could play with the contrast, and I really like the final image and how it looks. So that's one cool thing that you can do, adding a personal touch, and I think a lot of teams and schools will really like that. Another option you have is to use the school or the team's logo, and I have a few examples here. This is an example on the left where I kind of stretched it to fill the entire area and actually, come off of the canvas. It just seemed to work well that way. Some logos may not work well that way, and you may want to go with the option on the right. Now this is a little bit of a manual process. There's not any automation involved to get this repeating text, but basically if you drop your logo in there, make it a smart object, and continue to duplicate it, space them out. Once you get them all in there, you can select them all, and with your move tool, click on the corner, kind of rotate them and scale them, fit them in there. That's not going to be for everybody, and I understand that, but still there are a lot of people that can do that quickly, and that it will be worth the little bit of time and effort that takes. So just one more option. But of course, you always have the built-in repeating text option, which I think looks great as well. So let's jump into this thing. I've got this thing a mess right now. Let's close all of this. This is the 4x5 template file, and just keep in mind that everything that I show you, the same techniques are going to apply to the other files. It's the same concepts. But if you get stumped on anything, just reach out, and I'm always happy to help. But let's start like we always do here at the bottom. I've got a folder entitled background layers. So if you open it up, this is where we're going to find the bulk of all the layers and everything that is incorporated in this template. We'll go all the way to the bottom, and it's pretty self-explanatory, but the first layer at the bottom, we've got change background color. It's very simple. If you double click in this box, you can use this slider and color picker tool to get the color that you want. So we're going to roll with, let's just roll with this green right now. Let's say this is the green that you want. Now automatically you can see that looks crazy and very distracting, and the main reason for that is because of the fact that this repeating text that overlaps the green area is bright white in contrast. Now there may be some scenarios where you want that much contrast, but I think generally speaking you're not going to want that. And so if you go back to how I had it, you can see it's much less distracting. It's very subtle, but it's there. You can see it. So let's go back to that green, and let's say you've got this color. So if you come up one more layer, you'll see this is repeating text foreground. So it's referring to this repeating text rather than this repeating text in the orange here. Color overlay right here. This is how you control the color of the text. So if we open that up, click in this little box here, you get your color picker again. And actually, let me back up. I forgot a step. Once you get your color in here, it is my suggestion to copy the color code. That way, when you come into this color overlay on the repeating text folder, you can paste it here. Now, that will make it the same color as your background. And so now you just have a stroke that allows you to see what the text is. So now you can come up here to stroke. With stroke, you control the size of it here with a slider, or you can enter a number. You could actually turn the stroke off, and in that case you would want to come down to your color and make it maybe a little darker or a little lighter so that it would stand out. Let's cancel that. Let's turn that stroke back on, and you can come up here to this color picker and you can control the color of the stroke that you want. It's very simple, very easy. Now the other thing that you might want to control, I guess let me get this back to white, so that's gonna bug me. There we go. Alright, obviously you're going to want to control or change the actual words. To do that, open this up. It's got a lot of layers in here, but you really only need one, this blue one. I've set them up as smart objects, so you might come in here looking for a text layer. Don't be confused. Just double click on this little icon right here, and it's going to open up your smart object. Now you can double click on this T. It will automatically take you to the text tool, and it will automatically highlight everything. And so here is where you will change what you want the repeating text to say. So I'm going to type in Bulldog football, and I'll just keep typing it. I could copy and paste, but it shouldn't take too long. Let's see if we can squeeze another one in there. It's a little tight. I think it just barely fits, but honestly it really doesn't matter because you don't see what's on the left. I'm going to scoot this over with my arrow key just a little bit. Get it all on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out of this window. You're going to get this pop-up window. Always hit save, otherwise it won't update to the new text that you've entered. But when you do save, it will throw you back to your original template file, and it will have all of your text updated. So now you don't have to go into all of these layers and type that in. That would be just too much. So that's how that works. Next we have our corner layers, and let's fix this view a little bit. We've got our corner layers. So if we open that up, you can see we've got corner stripe top. So we've got this like paint stroke, and you've got corner color top, and then two more. It's only 4 layers. You've got your corner stripe bottom and corner color bottom. Pretty simple. So with your corner stripes, these paint stripes, if you click on color overlay, click in the box, very simple. You can change your color. And here it's very simple. You can double click here and choose your color. So you can control the color of the corners and these paint stripes. Very simple, very easy. Let's close that. Next one, we have our upper text layers. This is referring to the player name, and we've got senior here with a paint stroke. It's only 3 layers. A few things to talk about here. I really like the look of having the first name one color and the last name another color. That pretty much is a manual process, so those of you who are using automation, unless there's a wizard out there, and there may be, that can figure out how to do that, and it's probably possible, but more than likely you're going to have to pick a color if you're using any type of automation software or automation that you've created yourself. Now, if you want to keep this look and you're doing it manually, if you just double click this T here, get everything highlighted, now it'll automatically activate your text tool. You'll bring your cursor up, click and drag just to highlight just the first name. Here's where you can come up and select the color that you want the first name to be. We'll cancel, but let's say that we did change it. Now highlight just the last name and choose the color that you want it to be. And once you do that, you can come in and change just the first name. Now click and drag to highlight the last name. Commit it, and you've edited the name and you've changed and retained the colors. Next layer is this paint stroke here. You can move it around, make it bigger, but to change the color, you just click on color overlay, just like everything else. Very simple. Then we have our subtext, and the subtext in this sample image is used for the classification of senior. It could be junior, sophomore, freshman. It could say quarterback. It could say the year. It can be anything you want, or you can turn it off. You want to have your character panel activated so that you can see your text size. You may need to make the text size smaller, or here is where you control the kerneling or spacing in between your letters. Depending on what you put here, you may want to reduce that. So if you put in 100, it'll make it less space in between your characters, or you might want to stretch it out and throw in 500. Always a handy tool depending on how much space you have to work with and how big the word is. So the word sophomore takes up a lot more space. But you get the idea, and you control the color in the character panel here, or by double clicking in this T and coming up top, and you can control the color. Very simple. Alright, so next we have wrinkled texture background. So this is something you don't really need to mess with. All this is a layer that applies this wrinkled paper effect. So if you turn it off, it goes away. You can see that. You turn it on, I've got a levels adjustment. The reason for that is because the texture was a little dark, so I lightened it up. And if you turn it off, you can see it darkens things up quite a bit. I like the brighter white. If you really want to get into it, you can get in here and play with the levels and get it to your liking. Obviously, after you select the color that you want to use, because it will affect how light or dark that background color is. But that's all that is, and all there is to that. Really not anything that you need to mess with. But up here, the very top layer within the background layers folder, it's entitled background tear layers. It's referring to the layers that make up this torn section with the repeating text behind it. So you can see, turn that off, it goes away. We'll open it up. I've got an inner shadow layer. By making it a layer style effect, it was giving me shadow here on the sides, and for the life of me I couldn't figure out how to eliminate that. And so what I did is just make it its own separate layer. So if you turn it off, you see the shadow goes away. I added a vignette effect. It's kind of like a spotlight. It's a little brighter in the center. It draws your attention into the subject. If you turn it off, you can see it kind of flattens out. If you're feeling brave and you want to, you can come in here, double click, and it's an exposure adjustment layer, and you can tweak that. And maybe you want to make it darker and really draw it in. And then again, maybe not. But it's there. Next we have paper texture. So if we zoom in, let's look at this. You can see I've got this paper texture here. It has a levels adjustment, and that is also to lighten it up. If I turn the levels adjustment off, you'll see it darkens up quite a bit. And the fact that I was using white or very light text, I wanted it to appear to be more white, and so I added this levels. You can adjust that to your liking or just leave it alone. Next we have repeating text. It's the same concept. If you open it up, you only have to bother with one of these smart objects, the blue one, the first one. So you'll double click here, and let's see. Right now it says Dog Pride. Let's change it to say Go Dogs. Go Dog. We'll make it Dogs. And I want to copy that. Command C. Arrow key right, and we're going to space bar, and I'm going to Command V to paste, space bar. I'm just going to, I don't know if that saves me time or not. I'm going to pretend it does. It runs off, but that's okay. I'm going to commit it. Now, I've updated my text. I'm going to go here to close it out. You'll get this pop-up window. Make sure you hit save. Otherwise, you will have done all of that for nothing. But once you hit save, it will update all of your layers here. So you can see that it's been updated. Now you can select this with your move tool. It's really big, so you can move these around. Maybe you want them to line up a certain way, or you could scale it up if you want it to be bigger, scale it down, all kinds of options there. Last layer that you see here is change color. So this background color, very easy, double click and find your color. All very simple, kind of repetitive stuff here, but that makes it easier to zip through it. So that is all of your background layers. This is also a good point to talk about using your own logo or your own image. So let's see here. I'm going to turn off repeating text. And that's the wrong one. Let's see here. We're going to go in here, turn off this repeating text. All right, so let's say that we did want to use our own photo. I actually have one here. Let's open it up. All right, so we have our Bulldog Stadium. So I'm going to try to make this real quick, but I'm going to show you if I can even remember. I think it's under Edit. And yeah, Sky Replacement. So check this out. This is very cool. You can actually add your own sky images if there's one that you want to use. But you have this drop-down menu. Keep in mind, if you colorize it or make it black and white, you know, you can use a lot of these different ones. I have sunset. We have this one selected. You can pick the one that you like and it'll automatically update it. I went with this one. You can play with these sliders down here, lighting adjustment, color adjustment. So if you increase this, it kind of just makes it all blend together just a little bit more. You may not want everything maxed out, but that's what I did for mine. If you hit OK, it's going to create all of these extra layers. But what you can actually do from here is highlight both and merge those layers. Now I'm going to split my window. I'm going to drag this sucker over here. Let's get back to just that one. Alright, I want to right click and I want to convert it to a smart object because I might be scaling it up and scaling it down, scaling it up, moving it around, and I don't want it to lose quality and I don't want it to damage the file. So we'll make it a smart object. We'll click this corner. Alright. I might make it a little bigger. I don't remember what I did for the other one, but yeah, you want to see a little bit of that back there. Perfect. Well, let's say you get it how you like it. Now right now it's color. That may look good. What I did, it's a smart object, so I hit Command U, but I think you can come up here to, oh no, you can come up here to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and this is going to do a smart filter. So you can do a few things here. You can desaturate it, go black and white, or you can hit Colorize, and now you can control with your saturation, lightness, and darkness. You can make it try to match the school color. So you want to make it very saturated and try to find the right orange. That might be a cool effect. You can turn that off, leave it completely desaturated, hit OK, and then I'll go ahead and demonstrate the other step that I took, which was a levels adjustment. Command L on a Mac, but if you go up to what is it, Image and Adjustments, you can select it there. So now we've got our lights on the right, darks on the left, midtones in the middle. If you slide that up, you get a lot more punchier lights. You can move the darks down, you can move this to be lighter or darker, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it. But that's it. That's how I made that image. So I didn't want to drag that out too long, but I wanted to show you guys how I did it. It was very simple. Just have to have that photograph, so be thinking about that. A few quick steps and boom, you've got it in there. Let's delete that. Alright, let's say we want to add our own logo. Alright, I've got the logo here. I'm just going to drag and drop. Now by dragging and dropping, and I hit commit, it automatically makes it a smart object, so I can scale that however I like. It actually went above where I want it to be, and I didn't talk about that with the photo, but you want to bring it down here and put it over the change color, and click on the corner, drag it up, scale it how you like. Now by placing it here with these layers turned on above it, you are going to retain the vignette effect, the drop shadow, and the texture, so you can see the texture there. So that's important if you want all of that to show, to make sure you place the logo just above the change color layer that's on there. Let's get that back to fit on screen, and that's how you can add your logo. Now I am not going to go through the entire process, but let's say for example you want the repeating logo. You can scale them down however big you want. Let's commit that. Now I'm going to come down here, I'm going to make a new folder to keep things organized. I'm going to drag that up into the folder. Now you can right click and duplicate. On a Mac you hold Option and click and drag down, and you've got one. And you can, I hold down shift so that it keeps it like that. Now I'm going to highlight both, click and drag down, or right click and duplicate, and that gives me two more highlighted. And I'm going to hold down shift and use my Wacom pen to scoot them over. Let's commit that. I'm going to highlight all of them, drag that down. This time I'm going to come down and make a new row. Now I'm not being very meticulous here with my spacing. I'm just trying to demonstrate. So let's say you get as many as you want in there. Now you can come up here, select this group folder that you have with your move tool selected. Now let's pretend I have a lot more in here, but now I'll scale it up and you can rotate it and line it up with the same direction that all these text layers are going. And you can have a repeating logo back there. And that's what I did here. So this is what I'm referring to, you can see. But hopefully we've touched on that enough where it all makes sense. Next we have our subject image folder. It has a built-in drop shadow layer adjustment, layer style. You can adjust that if you double click on it. You can control the opacity and the distance and size and all of that good stuff, but really you just drop your subject in here and scale and position them. I don't like those logos showing there. I'm going to go back and fix that. I just kind of left it, didn't I? That's not the one right here. Let's put our repeating text on, turn that off. Yeah, that's better. Alright, so this is where your subjects go. Pretty simple and straightforward. Alright, lower text. There's a little bit to talk about in this one. Alright, so in your lower text, we have this wrinkle texture that is clipped to this folder. And this wrinkle texture just applies that wrinkle look to everything that's in this folder. And so in this folder, we have our text layers, our 3 text layers. We have another paper texture, and so that applies this texture to these paper strips, but it does not apply it to the text. That's why I placed it below the text. And we have this paper strips folder, subfolder within it. All right, so obviously this is where you're going to change, you know, your text. So pretty simple. It could be falcons. Okay. Now with your character panel, you can control your size and your kerneling. I've got it set where I think it looks good. Now we have these layer styles that are applied, and it's very subtle, but this is actually a gradient. It's lighter to darker. So you see your gradient overlay here. Very subtle, but you can go with any gradient. You can click here to control your first lower color. Click over here, click here, and get your lighter color. What did we end up doing? Red? Yeah. It gives it a different kind of look. You could use some of your gradients you already have, black, what have you. But you don't have to use a gradient. So if you don't want to use a gradient, just turn it off. If you turn it off, it works the same way. In your character panel here, or double click, come up here, and you can just go solid. And that might be easier. It might be what you want to do. So you can turn this gradient on or off. We have an inner shadow, which you probably want to leave it like it is. Your stroke, if you double click, you can change the color of your stroke if you want. Change it to black. Now you'll notice it didn't apply black to all of it, and that is because I have a bevel emboss. So you can turn that on or off depending on what you like. But the main thing is controlling the color, which you'll use this gradient overlay, or you'll turn it off, double click, and come up here. So that's how you control the color. Now, few things that I want to touch on. You may type in something here. What is something that is longer? Let's say Mountaineers. Okay, so that obviously doesn't fit. So I'm going to scale this down. There we go. All right, so now there's an obvious problem with this. Some of you may be okay with it and leave it. To me, the obvious problem is how much space there is up here and here. And so the way that you handle or deal with that is to come down and find the respective paper layer. So they're titled paper strip team name, paper strip subtext, and paper strip year. Now it can be whatever you want, but if you find the one and you have your move tool selected and select this one, if you click, it is a smart object, so if you click on the corner, it's going to activate. Now you can click on any of these side anchor points, the top, the bottom, the left, the right, depending on what you want to do with it. But I'm going to hold down shift, click on this top anchor point, and I'm going to drag down, and I'm going to click on the bottom and drag up. Get it pretty close. Now commit it. I'm going to use my arrow key to move it down just a little bit and over. Now that was quick. But now, if you want to scale them together, say make it bigger or smaller, with that paper strip layer selected, you can come up and I hold down Command. It might be Control on a PC, but Command, and that highlights or selects both of them. If you look at my layer panel here, you can see they're both selected, and this allows you to move them and scale them together. So you can scale and arrange them. It's a little bit of a kind of a hassle or pain that way, but I had to set it up that way to be able to control these textures that are applying. They have to be in their own folders. So you can do the same thing with any of these text layers and their respective paper strip layers. You can do just like I did. You can scale them up, scale them down. You can control the width and the height just by doing it the way that I just showed you. If you want to change the color, that's very simple. They have these color layers clipped. You just double click and select your color. There is one other thing I want to talk about. Let's say you want this white. So I go to the max white. Well, that's not very white. So that is why I have on this paper texture a levels adjustment. If you need this to be lighter or darker, come up to the levels and you can drag this right hand marker to the left and it will lighten it up. If you need it darker for some reason, you can do the opposite. Come over here, drag this to the right, and it'll start to darken up. I hope that covers everything. Let's see. I think we had that. Some form of orange. All right. And that is all the layers in the lower text folder. And that is all the layers in the file all together. All right, so that's a lot that we covered. Hopefully we've covered everything. For most of you, that was probably way overkill. But I always like to go over everything, no matter what your skill level or experience level is. I want to be able to demonstrate how everything is done. So hopefully I've done that. I guess the only other thing that I will cover before we wrap this up is the memory mate, and we'll get out of here. So let me get that memory mate pulled up and we'll jump into that. Alright, so we have our memory mate file pulled up. And for any of you who have watched the videos or used the templates, maybe the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, they all work the same way, so you may be familiar with this. But if you're not familiar, there is a dedicated MemoryMate file, and in order for the MemoryMate file to work, it all starts with the team image, which you'll want to use more than likely the 4:5 ratio team image. It just fits better. Once you have your 4:5 team image created and ready to go, you save it as a JPEG, or it could be another file type, but you get it saved. You will want to have that available, because we're going to drag and drop it in to this template here. So let's look at these layers. All of these layers set up the same as the other files, with the exception of using your team image. But as far as customizing it, all the same stuff. So we have this folder here. It says insert 4:5 team image here. If you open it up, you'll see one is in here. Let's just delete it, pretend it's not in there. So now it needs to be in there. Alright, so I found my image. There's a few ways to do it, but the way I do it is to pull it up outside of Photoshop where I can see it. And I just click and drag into the document. It will automatically make it a smart object, so you can hit the check mark, that's fine. I want to make sure that it went into the folder. I had the folder selected, but because it had no contents, it placed it directly above the folder. So we're going to drag that down into the folder. There we go. Alright, and now with our move tool selected, I'm going to click on the corner and I'm going to drag it down. I'll click on this corner and drag it up a little bit. I can click in the middle and move it around, but you can fine-tune it to your liking. Once you get it how you like it, we'll hit this check mark to commit it. So it automatically applied this drop shadow, automatically applied this colored border. So that makes it a little easier, but you may want to edit those. The drop shadow you probably would want to leave alone, but the border is controlled with a stroke. You can turn it off. Looks kind of good that way as well. If you want to leave the stroke on, just double click it, and right here you have your color picker to change the color that you want it to be. Pretty easy. Here you have your subject image that you drop in. Scale and position them to your liking. It's got the drop shadow already built in, and everything else is the same. So that's it. Kind of an earful. That was a lot to cover, but hopefully we've covered everything, and hopefully I've answered any questions you might have. And as always, if you still have questions that are left unanswered, or if you need help, reach out to me, don@thirdcreative.com, or if you go to the website, you can use the contact option. I always try to get back to you as quick as I can. But that's all I've got for you this time. It's time to jump into a new design and get something else going and get it out to you. So until next time, see ya.